felt like you were being watched while browsing the aisles of a library? That prickling sensation on the back of your neck, the feeling of eyes on you even when you're completely alone, most of us brush it off as imagination. But for the staff and patrons of the old Crestwood Library, it was an undeniable, chilling reality. This isn't just a story. It is a collection of experiences from a place where the silence was often broken by more than just the turning of a page. The Crestwood Library was built in 1892, a beautiful Victorian structure with towering shelves, winding staircases, and shadowy corners that seemed to hold secrets from a bygone era. For decades, it was a beloved town landmark. But alongside its rich history, it developed a reputation for something else, something much more unsettling. Whispers began to circulate about a presence, a ghost that didn't just haunt the building but seemed to fixate on certain individuals. They called it the stalker. The stories all follow a similar pattern. It would start subtly. A book you were just looking at would be on the floor when you turned back around. You might hear a faint, shuffling sound from an empty aisle, like someone dragging their feet. Or you'd catch a fleeting glimpse of a tall, shadowy figure at the end of a long corridor, only for it to vanish when you blinked. At first, it's easy to dismiss. Old buildings make strange noises, right? Your eyes can play tricks on you in low light, but then it escalates. One of the most well-documented accounts comes from a young librarian named Clara who worked there in the late 1970s. Clara loved her job, but from her first week she felt a strange, oppressive energy in the history section on the second floor. She would be meticulously organizing books only to find them completely rearranged moments later, not just knocked over, but placed in a bizarre, nonsensical order. Then came the whispers. She'd be working late, the only one in the building, and hear a faint, raspy voice murmuring her name. Clara, quotes. It would hiss from the darkness. Terrified, she initially tried to ignore it, focusing on her work. But the presence grew bolder. It started following her. As she walked from one section to another, she could hear slow, deliberate footsteps echoing hers, always just a few paces behind. When she stopped, they stopped. When she sped up, they sped up. She'd whip around, heart pounding, to find nothing but empty space. It was a terrifying game of cat and mouse, and she was always the mouse. The peak of her ordeal happened one stormy evening. The power flickered, plunging the library into near-total darkness, save for the emergency lights. Clara was in the basement archives, a place even the most seasoned staff avoided. As she searched for a file with her flashlight, she felt a sudden, intense cold wash over her. The beam of her light began to flicker and dim, and then she saw it. Standing at the far end of the narrow aisle, partially obscured by a shelf, was the silhouette of a tall, gaunt man. He was unnaturally still, just a void in the darkness. She couldn't see a face, but she knew, with every fiber of her being, that he was staring right at her. Frozen in fear, all she could do was stare back. The air grew heavy, thick, with a malevolent energy. The footsteps started again, not behind her this time, but coming towards her. Slow, heavy, and full of purpose. Thud, thud, thud. Clara finally broke from her paralysis, screamed, and ran. She didn't stop running until she was out the front doors and in the pouring rain, never looking back. She quit her job the very next day and refused to ever set foot in that library again. Clara wasn't the only one. Over the years, countless patrons reported similar experiences. A college student studying for his finals felt an icy hand on his shoulder, but when he turned, No one was there. He then saw every book on the table across from him fly off onto the floor, one by one. A young girl told her mother that a tall, sad man followed her through the children's section, shushing her, even though she wasn't making a sound. So, who is this stalking ghost? Local legend points to a man named Elias Croft, the head librarian in the early 1900s. Croft was a stern, solitary man, deeply possessive of his library and its books. He viewed the library not as a public service, but as his personal collection. He was known to quietly follow patrons he deemed unworthy or disrespectful, watching them from the shadows to ensure they treated the books with proper reverence. He died of a heart attack one night while working late, right in the history section on the second floor. It's believed his obsessive, possessive spirit never left. He continues his nightly patrols, watching over his collection and fixating on those who enter his domain. He isn't just a residual memory. He seems to be an intelligent, interactive entity, choosing his targets and enjoying the fear he creates. The old Crestwood Library was eventually closed down a few years ago, not because of the ghost, but due to structural issues. The building still stands, silent and empty, its windows like dark, vacant eyes. But those who live nearby say that on quiet nights, if you look up at the second-floor windows, you can sometimes see a tall, shadowy figure moving slowly through the darkness, still watching, still waiting, a lonely guardian of a forgotten hall of stories. It seems the stalker of the library is still on duty. What do you think? Would you be brave enough to spend the night in the Crestwood Library? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this chilling tale, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories from the shadows. Thanks for watching, and stay safi. Have you ever felt a chill run down your spine? A sudden, inexplicable sense of dread that tells you something is terribly wrong. I'm not talking about a spooky movie or a ghost story told around a campfire. I'm talking about real, raw fear. The kind that grips you when you realize the world isn't as safe as you thought. This is one of those stories. It's a story about a door that should never, ever have been opened. This all happened a few years back to a friend of a friend. Let's call him Alex. Alex was a college student, bright, a bit of a skeptic, and always looking for a good deal. When he found an incredibly cheap apartment for rent just off campus, he thought he'd hit the jackpot. It was an old building, the kind with character creaky floorboards, high ceilings, and that faint, musty smell of history. The landlord was an elderly man who seemed a bit eccentric but harmless. He gave Alex a quick tour, pointed out the amenities, and handed over the keys. But there was one strange instruction. In the back of the small living room, there was a narrow, plain wooden door. The landlord pointed to it and said, "This door stays locked. Always don't try to open it. The last tenant, well, just leave it be." Alex, being a practical guy, just nodded. He figured it was probably a storage closet full of the landlord's old junk, or maybe it led to a part of the building that was under repair. He didn't think much of it. For the first few weeks, everything was perfect. The apartment was quiet, the location was great, and he was settling into his new life. The door was just part of the furniture, a silent, forgotten feature of the room. But curiosity, as they say, is a powerful thing. It started subtly. Lachiati night, when the rest of the building was silent, Alex would sometimes hear things. A faint scratching sound, like a mouse behind the wall. He'd dismiss it, telling himself it was just an old building settling. Then the scratching became more distinct, more rhythmic. It sounded less like an animal and more ... intentional. It always seemed to be coming from behind that specific door. He'd press his ear against the cold wood, but the moment he did, the sound would stop. It was unnerving, to say the least. He tried to rationalize it. It's the pipes. It's the neighbors. It's the wind. But a part of him knew it was something else. One evening, while studying for his midterms, he heard a new sound. A soft, low murmur. It was so faint, he thought he was imagining it. He turned off his music and listened intently. There it was again. A whisper, too indistinct to make out any words, but it was undeniably a voice, and it was coming from the other side of the door. That's when the unease turned into genuine fear. Alex called his landlord the next day. "Hey," he said, trying to sound casual, "about that locked door. I've been hearing some strange noises, scratching, and maybe even voices." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. The landlord's voice, when he finally spoke, was strained. "Son, I told you to leave it alone. It's nothing, just old pipes. Don't worry about it." But his tone said the exact opposite. It was a warning. This only fueled Alex's obsession. What could be behind that door that was so secret? Was someone trapped? Was it something dangerous? His mind raced with possibilities, each one more terrifying than the last. The rational part of his brain screamed at him to listen to the landlord, to pack his bags and leave. But the other part, the part that was a mix of curiosity and a strange sense of responsibility, couldn't let it go. He felt like he had to know. He started examining the door more closely. It was solid oak, with an old, tarnished brass doorknob and a heavy-duty deadbolt. It was clear someone wanted to keep it shut or keep something in. He jiggled the knob. Locked tight. He pushed against the wood. It didn't budge. The mystery was consuming him. He wasn't sleeping well, and he found his eyes constantly drifting towards the door, as if expecting it to burst open at any moment. The breaking point came one rainy Tuesday night. The scratching was louder than ever before, frantic and desperate, and the whispering. It wasn't just a murmur anymore. He could almost make out a word, a name, being repeated over and over. It sounded like a plea for help. Alex's heart was pounding in his chest. He couldn't stand it anymore. He had to do something. He grabbed a screwdriver and a hammer from his small toolbox. He told himself he was doing the right thing, that there might be someone in distress on the other side. He started with the hinges, trying to pry them loose. The old matter groaned in protest, but after a few minutes of frantic work, the pins came free. The door sagged, held only by the lock. Then he went to work on the deadbolt, hammering the screwdriver into the frame, trying to splinter the wood. The noise was deafening in the small apartment, echoing with his own heavy breathing. Sweat poured down his face. Finally, with a loud crack, the wood around the lock gave way. The door swung inward with a low, mournful creak, revealing a pitch-black space beyond. A wave of cold, stagnant air washed over him, carrying a smell that was sickly sweet and metallic, like old pennies and decay. He flicked on his phone's flashlight and aimed it into the darkness. It wasn't a closet. It wasn't another room. It was a narrow, steep staircase leading down into what looked like a cellar. The walls were rough, unfinished stone, slick with moisture. The stairs themselves were old, wooden, and looked incredibly unstable. Hesitantly, he took the first step down. The air grew colder with each step. The smell became more intense. His flashlight beam cut through the oppressive darkness, revealing nothing but more stone and shadow. "Hello?" he called ouchie, his voice trembling. "Is anyone down here?" Only the drip, drip, drip of water answered him. He reached the bottom of the stairs and found himself in a small, cramped cellar. The floor was dirt. There was nothing there. No furniture, no boxers, no sign of life, just empty, suffocating space. He felt a wave of confusion and disappointment. All that fear, all that effort, ... for nothing. Was the landlord just a paranoid old man? Were the sounds just in his head? He turned to go back up the stairs, and that's when his flashlight beam caught something on the far wall, scratched into the stone. Over and over again were words, hundreds of them, gouged into the rock with what looked like fingernails. They were frantic, overlapping, and barely legible. As he moved the light closer, he could make out a single repeated phrase, "Don't let me out." A paralyzing cold shot through him, a cold that had nothing to do with the temperature in the cellar. Don't let me out. Not let me out. The scratching, the whispers, they weren't pleas for help. They were a warning. It wasn't someone trying to get out. It was something trying to keep someone else, or something else, ... from getting in. Suddenly, he heard a noise from above. A soft click. He spun around and aimed his light back up the stairs. The door at the top of the stairs had just swung shut. He heard the distinct metallic sound of the deadbolt sliding back into place. He was locked in. He screamed. He pounded on the door. He yelled until his throat was raw, but there was no response. He was trapped in a cold, dark cellar, with nothing but the chilling message on the wall for company. We don't know how long Alex was down there. A week later, his parents, worried that they hadn't heard from him, called the police. When they forced their way into the apartment, they found it empty. The strange door in the living room was sealed shut, looking as if it hadn't been opened in decades. There was no sign of a struggle, no sign of Alex. He had simply vanished. The only thing out of place was on the inside of that door. On the side facing the apartment, there were fresh, deep scratches in the wood, and a single, desperate phrase had been carved into it. "It's in the room." The landlord was questioned, but he claimed to know nothing. He said he warned Alex, the previous tenant. He'd also disappeared without a trace. The police searched the building but found no cellar, no hidden staircase. It was as if it had never existed. The apartment was sealed, and the building was eventually condemned. But the story lives on, a terrifying reminder that some warnings should be heeded, and some doors are meant to stay closed forever. What was it that Alex let into his room? We'll never know. But whatever it was, it's a chilling thought that the greatest horrors aren't the ones trying to get out, but the ones trying to get in. Thanks for joining me for this unsettling tale. If you have a story that made you question reality, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more dives into the unexplained. Stay safe out there, and maybe double check your locks tonight.
Hello my friends, it's me. Welcome back to the channel. And welcome to the 7th door, episode 3, The Man Beneath the Stairs. If this is your first visit, be sure to check out episode 1 and 2 before watching this one. You can find links to both episodes on this page. Also, please consider subscribing so you never miss an episode. Let's get into it. Scene 1. The ticking. It had been 3 days since the second lock vanished. Sadim was no longer sleeping. The ticking had started, not from a clock, but from within the walls, sharp, mechanical, like a dying watch, trying to keep time in a place where time no longer moved. It came every night at 3:07 a.m. Then silence, then whispers in a voice that sounded like his own. "You left him down there, Sadim." He checked the 7th door again. 3 locks remained. He hadn't touched them, but the house had. Scene 2. the basement. The ticking sound led him to the wooden door beneath the main staircase. It had been locked since the day he arrived. Now it stood ajar. A foul, earthy scent hit him as he pulled it open, a mix of rotting soil and something metallic, like blood and rust. He descended slowly. The steps creaked under his weight. The basement was colder than it should have been. There were no windows, no vents. Yet a chill moved through it like breath. He turned on his flashlight. The walls were carved stone, damp and black with age. But on the far side, he saw it. A trapdoor, half buried under loose bricks and dust. On it, a sigil, just like the one on the 7th door, only smaller. And beneath the sigil, scratch marks. Human fingernail marks. Scene 3. The man who crawls. That night, the scratching began. Under the floor, beneath his bedroom. It started as light tapping, then turned into long, deliberate strokes, like nails dragging across wood. He put his ear to the floorboards and heard breathing. Labored, raspy, wheezing like someone struggling to stay alive. Then, a whisper. "It's dark down here. You left me in the dark. I see you when you sleep." Sadim bolted from the room and slept in the kitchen. The sound followed him. Everywhere. Scene 4. The photograph. The next morning, while searching the study, Sadim found an old photograph inside a leather-bound book. It was a black and white photo of a boy maybe 12 or 13 years old standing in front of the same trapdoor in the basement. But behind the boy, barely visible in the shadow, was a figure crouched on all fours, unnatural limbs too long, head tilted sideways like it was broken. He turned the photo over. In his grandfather's handwriting, "We locked him down there. But he doesn't sleep. He crawls. He watches." Scene 5. The third lock breaks. The wind howled that night. Windows rattled. The house groaned under invisible pressure. At exactly 3:07 a.m., Sadim awoke to the sound of footsteps, barefoot, wet, slapping gently against the wood. He opened his door. Nothing. He crept toward the 7th door and stopped. Another lock was gone. Only 2 remained. And now something had changed in the air like a static charge. He could feel it under his skin. The hallway light flickered. A low growl vibrated through the floor. Then something crawled out of the darkness beneath the stairs. It was him, the man from the basement, but not fully a man. His face was stretched, skin pale and tight, lips torn back in a permanent scream. Bones jutted out unnaturally, his fingers scraping the floor as he dragged his body like an insect. He looked up at Sadim with black, unblinking eyes and whispered, "You open the 3rd. I remember your blood." Scene 6. The bloody dream. Sadim woke in bed, soaked in sweat, shaking. Had it been a dream? He rushed to the 7th door. The 3rd lock was still missing. Not a dream. Then he noticed it. Red smears along the hallway floor, leading from under the stairs to the trap door in the basement. He followed the trail. The trap door was wide open. Inside it, darkness. A pit so deep his flashlight couldn't find the bottom. Something moved below. He didn't wait to find out what. Scene 7. The tape recorder. Back in the study, he found an old tape recorder. Inside was a labeled cassette. "Do not listen alone, -1981. He played it anyway. His grandfather's voice. It crawled out of the first circle. The blood wasn't enough. I thought sealing the trapdoor would end it, but it found the boy. It fed on him. And now, he is it. The man beneath the stairs is no longer human. If he speaks your name, don't answer. If he asks to come in, don't say yes. He is the 3rd. Then static. Then a deep, raspy voice said, you've heard me now. The tape melted in the player. So we'll pick back up with the story in episode 4. Make sure to subscribe if you do, I don't want to miss it. But for now, let's talk about the secrets hiding beneath this house. What do you think is down that trapdoor? How did it turn the boy into the thing that he is? Let me know in the comments. And if you liked this episode, please leave a like. It helps bring these stories to more people. And if you really like the series, then consider supporting us on a crowdfunding platform. With your support, we can continue to explore new, terrifying tales and bring even more scary stories right here on our channel. Thank you for watching. Come back soon, because I know you dare.
Have you ever heard of a place so strange, so unsettling, that it's been called the Bermuda Triangle of Romania? A place where the trees grow in bizarre, twisted shapes, where electronic devices fail for no reason, and where people report experiences they can't explain. Today, we're venturing deep into the heart of Transylvania, not to find Dracula, but to explore the eerie mysteries of the Hoja Forest, located just outside the bustling city of Cluj-Napoca. The Hoja Forest, or Padurea Hoja Baciu, has earned a global reputation as one of the most haunted forests in the world. But this isn't just a collection of campfire stories. For decades, it's been a hotspot for researchers, paranormal investigators, and curious visitors, all trying to understand the strange phenomena that seem to permeate this ancient woodland. The story begins, as many do, with a single, compelling photograph. In 1968, a military technician named Emil Barnia was spending a weekend in the forest. Suddenly, he and his companions saw something extraordinary. A bright, silent, saucer-shaped object hovering in the sky. Barnia managed to snap a few photos before the object shot away at an incredible speed. These images became some of the clearest UFO pictures ever taken and were analyzed by experts worldwide. Many concluded they were authentic, launching the Hoja Forest into the international spotlight. But strange lights in the sky are just the beginning. The forest's most iconic feature is a mysterious, nearly perfect circle in the middle of the woods where nothing grows. Soil samples have been tested repeatedly, yet scientists can find no reason for this barren patch of land. Locals call it the circle or the clearing, and it's considered the epicenter of the forest's paranormal activity. Many who step inside report intense feelings of anxiety, nausea, and the sense that they are being watched. Some have even emerged with unexplained scratches, rashes, or burns. The forest got its name from a shepherd, or bachu, who, according to legend, disappeared into the woods, along with his entire flock of 200 sheep. Despite extensive searches, no trace of him or his animals was ever found. This tale has been passed down through generations, a chilling warning about the forest's mysterious nature, and he isn't the only one. Over the years, numerous people have been reported missing in the area, some vanishing without a trace, others reappearing miles away with no memory of what happened to them. One of the most well-documented cases involves a 5-year-old girl who wandered into the forest and disappeared. Her family and the local community searched for days, fearing the worst. Then, 5 years later, she walked out of the forest, wearing the same clean clothes she had on the day she vanished, with no memory of the intervening time. She hadn't aged a single day. This concept of missing time, or time slips, is a recurring theme in reports from Hoja Baciu. Biologists and botanists are also baffled by the forest. Many of the trees here grow in unnatural ways. Instead of reaching for the sky, they are twisted in spirals, bent at sharp 90-degree angles to the ground, or intertwined like pretzels. This bizarre growth pattern is concentrated in certain areas, while other parts of the forest look completely normal. No scientific explanation, like wind, soil composition, or disease, fully accounts for these strange formations. It's as if some unseen force has warped the very fabric of nature itself. Beyond the visual oddities, there are the sounds. Visitors often report hearing disembodied voices, female whispers, and inexplicable giggling when there is no one else around. Electronic voice phenomena, or EVP. Sessions conducted by paranormal teams have captured what many believe to be intelligent responses from an unseen source. These recordings often feature Romanian words or phrases, adding another layer of authenticity to the local legends. Then there are the shadow figures. Countless visitors and investigators have reported seeing dark, human-like shapes flitting between the twisted trees, often just at the edge of their peripheral vision. When they turn to get a better look, the figures are gone. Photographs taken in the forest frequently show orbs, strange mists, and even what appear to be human faces materializing in the smoke or fog. Even those who don't believe in ghosts or aliens admit that the forest has a powerful, almost palpable energy. Many people who enter feeling perfectly fine suddenly experience headaches, dizziness, and an overwhelming sense of dread. It's this psychological effect that makes the Hoja forest so deeply unsettling. Is it a true paranormal hotspot, a gateway to another dimension? Or is there a geological or atmospheric explanation for these strange occurrences? The man who studied the forest more than anyone was biologist Alexandru Sift. Starting in the 19th, he dedicated his life to documenting the forest's anomalies. He took thousands of photographs of strange lights, mists, and shapes that his camera captured but were invisible to the naked eye. He meticulously cataloged the physical and psychological effects on visitors. Unfortunately, after his death in 1993, a huge portion of his archive mysteriously disappeared, leaving behind more questions than answers. So, what is really going on in the Hoja forest? Some theories point to the spirits of murdered peasants who are said to haunt the woods, their souls trapped and unable to move on. Others believe it's a dimensional rift, a place where the veil between our world and another is unusually thin. More skeptical minds suggest that rare magnetic fields or undiscovered natural phenomena could be responsible for the equipment, malfunctions, and physiological effects. Whatever the truth may be, the Hoja forest remains an enigma. It challenges our understanding of the world and reminds us that there are still places on this earth that defy easy explanation. It's a place of eerie beauty, deep history, and profound mystery. What do you think is behind the strange events in Romania's haunted forest? Have you ever had an experience you couldn't explain? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this journey into the unknown, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more explorations of the world's most mysterious places. Thanks for watching and stay curious.
Seventh Door, Episode 2. The Blood Oath, Scene 1. Desperation. Sunlight streamed through the grimy window, illuminating dust motes dancing in the stale air. Sadim paced the floor, his face drawn and haggard from lack of sleep. For days, he'd been tormented by the knowledge contained in his grandfather's journal. The missing locks on the forbidden door were a constant, ominous reminder of the danger he faced. But today, 3 locks were gone. What did that mean? Would they come today? How could he stop them? He remembered his grandfather's journal mentioning a way to seal the door permanently. It would require a ritual, an exchange, a sacrifice. The entry was faded and cryptic, but the meaning was clear. If he wanted to stop whatever lurked behind that door, he needed to make a deal. A deal with the devil. Scene 2. Unearthing the past. Outside, the wind whipped around him, carrying the scent of rain and decaying leaves. Sadim hurried through the village, avoiding the wary eyes of the villagers. Their whispers followed him like a shroud. He reached an old woman tending a small vegetable patch outside a dilapidated house. Rumor had it she knew all the village secrets. Maybe she could help him. She listened to his story, her gaze sharp and knowing. "Your grandfather made a terrible mistake," she rasped finally, "but you have a chance to undo it. However, you will need something powerful to counter the ancient evil he unleashed. Something made of moonlight." Her words echoed in his ears as he returned to the house, his mind racing. Moonlight. What did that mean? How could he possibly find something made of moonlight? As he searched the house, his eyes fell on an ornately carved silver mirror propped against a wall. Could that be it? The old woman had spoken of something made of moonlight, and mirrors reflect light. But why would his grandfather have put such a powerful artifact here? Was it to counter whatever evil he had unleashed? He placed the mirror on the floor in front of the door, its surface gleaming faintly in the dim light. He began chanting the words from his grandfather's journal, feeling a surge of power from the mirror's reflection, hoping it would be enough. Scene 3. The summoning. Suddenly, the room grew freezing cold. The candles flickered wildly, casting grotesque shadows that danced on the walls. The hair on the back of his neck stood on end as a guttural voice boomed from behind the door. "So the ritual begins," he continued chanting, bracing himself for whatever might emerge. The blood oath. The door trembled violently, its rotten wood straining against the onslaught from within. A putrid stench filled the room as cracks spiderwebbed across the door. The locks, sensing the weakening barrier, clanged frantically as if trying to escape. With a deafening crash, the door burst open, revealing a swirling vortex of darkness. Tendrils of shadow reached out, coiling around his legs and tugging him towards the abyss. "Help me," he cried out, struggling against the unseen force. The mirror shattered, its moonlight shards scattering and dissolving into motes of dust. His grandfather's journal flew from his grasp, its pages fluttering like a wounded bird before vanishing into the gaping maw of the doorway. The creatures slithered forward, their eyes burning with unholy fire. Fear threatened to consume him, but a primal instinct to survive spurred him on. He stumbled backward, tripping over the scattered locks, sending 4 more crashing to the ground. 5 down, 2 to go. The creature hissed, its voice dripping with malicious glee. The relentless pull of the shadows intensified. The remaining locks rattled ominously, hanging by a thread. The creatures advanced, their grotesque forms coalescing from the darkness. Their eyes gleamed with anticipation. "Almost done, little lamb. Soon we will feast." Terror lent him strength. He scrambled back, desperation lending speed to his movements. He flung himself aside as a massive paw swiped where he stood a moment before. "One more," he gasped, eyeing the final 2 locks, each representing a barrier between him and oblivion. One final push, one final prayer. He slammed the last lock into place, collapsing against the door as the shadowy figures writhed in frustration behind it. The vortex pulsed ominously, tendrils thrashing against the barrier. Their guttural roars reverberated through the house, shaking its very foundations. But he held his ground, his body aching, his breaths coming in ragged gasps. Would it hold? Would they wait? Or would they find another way in? Scene 4. Hope. As the cacophony continued, hope flickered within him. Perhaps by breaking the door seals, he had severed their connection. But the silence that followed was more terrifying than their rage. The vortex dissipated, leaving behind an unnerving stillness. Slowly, he rose, his limbs heavy with fatigue. The door, now devoid of locks, hung precariously from its hinges, a silent testament to the battle he had just endured. He cautiously approached it, his hand hovering over the worn surface. As he pushed it open, the stench of decay and brimstone assaulted his nostrils. Within, an inky blackness yawned, seemingly bottomless. A single, aged book lay on the threshold. Drawn to it, he picked it up. Its pages, filled with arcane symbols and incantations, whispered of forbidden lore. This was the source of his grandfather's pact, the key to understanding the horrors he had unleashed. As he delved deeper into the book, the truth of the seventh door unraveled before him. It was not merely a gateway, but a nexus of unspeakable entities, beings that thrived on fear and despair. His grandfather, in his hubris or desperation, had sought their power, opening the door to unimaginable consequences. The door shuddered, as if disturbed by his intrusion. The book in his hand sinister energy. "They are returning," a voice rasped from behind him. The voice of his grandfather, twisted and malevolent. He spun around, but there was no one there. The door, however, had begun to glow with an eerie light, as if to drag him back into its abyss. His heart pounded in his chest, echoing the rhythmic creaks of the door. Panic surged through him. He had to escape, to find a way to seal the door permanently. But how? The book offered a clue, a chant to banish the entities back to their realm. It was risky, requiring a complete sacrifice of his own essence to sever the connection. Was it worth it? Could he bear the cost? The door pulsed, its malevolent presence growing stronger with each passing moment. He had little time left.